Okay, this needs to be said. This video needed to be made. Stop pretending like Marvel Studios phases 1, 2, and 3 were perfect, and that there was nothing wrong, and that you were a fan the entire time and never complained. Because that's literally not true. Ever since grifters really jumped on the Marvel Studios brand is dead, and Marvel Studios will never be as perfect as phases 1 through 3, there seems to be a mass amount of people pretending that they always loved, supported, cared, and found everything pre-Avengers Endgame to be essentially perfect. So for this discussion, let's bring up some of the reviews across IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic for Phase 1 and just a little into Phase 2 for this, so we can kind of gauge what we're looking at here. And as I have these images scroll by, take note of these numbers. And I want you to look at how much of Phase 1 was in the 60s or 70s. Phase 2? I mean, Iron Man 3, people outright hated that movie. It didn't do that good. Thor: The Dark World? I mean, that was considered the worst thing in the MCU up until after Endgame. And then you got other films that, of course, joined the brand, eventually. You have Guardians of the Galaxy, which surprised many people. But then we get to more modern, I guess, look back on everything with rose-tinted glasses, right? And suddenly, Ant-Man is seen as this beacon of, wow, the good times in the MCU. And Doctor Strange is seen, oh wow, remember the good times in the MCU when all these great things existed? Oh my god, look at the Incredible Hulk. We all love the Incredible Hulk. They should make films like that again. People hated the Incredible Hulk. Nobody saw it in theaters. My wife and I were the only 2 among 4 other people that were there when that film opened up in its first showing on Thursday at a midnight showing. Okay, nobody was there. Guardians was thrown out to die by everybody up until they saw it. And people now go back and they pretend Doctor Strange, amazing character, we love him. People hated Scott Derrickson, and people just called it a cheap Iron Man knockoff. Not only that, when Doctor Strange 2 happened, people then went back and said, wow, you never realized how Derrickson is good. He's such a good director. Doctor Strange 1 was really unique and special. It didn't have to bend over backwards to be part of the MCU. When the original argument was, Scott Derrickson makes a cheap Iron Man knockoff that has nothing to do with the MCU, and why don't the other Avengers show up? Same thing for Iron Man 3. Revisionist history now tells you that people loved Captain Marvel, that first film was somehow good, but the second one is real bad. Essentially, what they're doing is building up today's rage by hating on the older thing less and slowly trying to condition people to believe that what came before was better than what we have today, and thus they took what you loved away from you. You know who else did this? You know what other fan base did this and does this still? Star Wars. That's the pattern here. We have entered now the Star Wars territory of the MCU. Remember how much the prequels were hated and George Lucas sold the company off to Disney because he was like, wow, the fans hate me and I can't stand this anymore. That's what's happening with the MCU now. The fans have decided, after complaining for a decade about MCU for children, MCU bad, MCU needs to connect to everything, TV must be important. When they get what they want, they suddenly go, nope, this is all bad, we want the old. It's the prequel pattern all over again. Just people are failing to see it, and they're just pretending phases 1, 2, and 3 were perfect.